Right, in defense of William Nylander. Hello everyone, thank you very much for clicking on this video, and I was going to make a regular review / discussion on the game we've seen today between the Toronto Maple Leafs and Ottawa Senators, where the Leafs won 2-1, but in light of Steve Simmons' recent article and many Leafs fans getting on William Nylander's back regarding his performance last game, or his recent performances in his last 5 or 6 games, I suppose, I thought, why not start a new series on this channel where we look at some issues, some players, some teams, coaches, or whatever is going on, and if I can make the argument that the slander that they have been getting is perhaps not justifiable or not exaggerated, then I will do it. So in defense of William Nylander, here it is. So I'll try and make this brief, and I'll try not to look at the cap hit except for in one instance. So William Nylander, when you look at William Nylander's stats this season, he's got 16 games played, and in these 16 games, he's got 12 points, 4 goals, 8 assists, 1 power play goal, and 5 power play points. The thing with that is that you have to take into account that compared to last year, he's doing better. He is doing better, even though he is going through a rough patch right now. The thing is, he's got less time on ice. Why? Because with the additions that the Toronto Maple Leafs have done, they can afford to give less time on the ice for certain players, which is perfectly fine. He's got less time on the power play as well, because the power play isn't necessarily loaded every night with Nylander, Tavares, Matthews, and Marner line for the power play, which again is fine because, in a way, yes, it would be nice to see more of the loaded power play, but in the other way, having 2 good power play units is a good thing to have. And over his career, 323 games played, 90 goals, 143 assists, 233 points. So he isn't a point per game guy, but he's well over the 0.5 points per game. So William Nylander isn't supposed to be a point per game guy. That's not why Kyle Dubas signed him. That is not why the Toronto Maple Leafs still have him on the team. He's not supposed to be that player. What he is supposed to be is a net from present, is a guy that, when needed, can step up. He doesn't necessarily do it every night, but he isn't paid the money to do it every night. He can step up, he can get some goals, he can get some game-tying goals, game-winning goals, he can get a goal here and there to get you back into the game when needed, but equally, he can create those chances, and he does that very well. He's not necessarily the fastest, he's not necessarily the one with the hardest shot or the best shot, he isn't the most physical, but what he is an all-round guy, and that's incredibly valuable. It's invaluable to a team. When you look at Edmonton, for example, it's very much a team with a guy like McDavid who's all round except for the physicality, a guy like Draisaitl who's all round except for the physicality, and for that physicality they need guys like Zach Kassian on the line, which Zach Kassian, it's Zach Kassian, right? And it takes away from the potential that this team could have, because a guy like Zach Kassian isn't going to produce the points that you need. He brings the physicality which other players might lack, but what he brings in physicality, he also takes away from in speed and in skill, right? But with a guy like William Nylander, what he brings is some speed, not the most, but good shot, not the best, physicality, but not the best. And then you could say, well, he's just a mediocre guy. No, because all of that, what he possesses, is still much higher than average, much higher than average, right? William Nylander's cap hit, I'm not exactly sure if it's 6.7 or 7.6. I think it's 6.7, but don't quote me on that. There's ways to look at cap hits, right? And that's the argument I'm going to make about the cap hit. If you're being paid more than 9.5 million, you're being paid to perform every single night. If you're being paid more than 8 million, between 8 million and 9.5 are being paid to perform about 85 to 90% of the time, right? I think that's a fair assessment. And if you're being paid between 6.5 or between 6 and 8 million, depending on how you want to put it, you're being paid to perform between 72, 3 to 75, 6, 7% of the time, right? Depending on the team you're on, depending on the other players that are on the team, it's going to be higher or lower. With Toronto, because they have players like Matthews, like Marner, like Tavares, now like Simmons and Thornton, and Robertson coming through, who can take some of that time away from Nylander, who can take some of the pressure away from Nylander, the percentage of what he needs to perform is probably slightly lower, which is perfectly fine for a guy like William Nylander, who isn't a point per game guy, but he's definitely more than 0.5. The thing with William Nylander also is he's not a guy like McDavid, like Draisaitl, like Kucherov or McDavid or Matthews, who will perform every night. No, he's not. He's not a guy that will get you 1 point, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 1 point, 1 point, and then maybe 1 or 2 games without a point. But then again, he won't get a point on 75 games in an 82 game season, which is perfectly fine, right? But what he is a guy that, yes, will have some patches, some dry patches without scoring, like he does now, 6 games or 7, where he doesn't get a point. But then for the next 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, he will get a point, 2 points, 3 points, and then that's how he brings his points tally up. And in a way, we can make the argument that yes, it's not rentable, and yes, it's not ideal, but that's why you have guys like Marner, like Matthews, like Tavares. And yes, Tavares isn't performing, and that's a problem. If Tavares isn't performing and Nylander isn't performing, then you have a problem in the second line, which we have right now, right? Once Tavares gets his mojo again, Nylander will most likely follow suit, right? And the argument you can also make for Nylander not having a good patch is throughout this season, 16 games, he's been paired on the second line with Tavares and then Simmons, Mikheyev, at some point Skerfoot, Hyman now. That's already 4 guys. That's already 4 guys in 16 games. It's hard to adapt to all these different players, all these different styles. And when Simmons is more of a physical guy, a grit guy, still with speed and with skill, but much more experienced than most of these other guys. Mikheyev is speed. Mikheyev, he doesn't have a great shot, so that scoring needs to be on Tavares and Nylander's shoulders. Hyman is a great guy. He's like Nylander, but just he's less talented in a way. Not to take away from Zach Hyman, he's still an excellent player, and for the cap hit he has, and for the things he brings to the team, he's invaluable. But it takes some time to get used to the players that you have on the line, and when you're not performing, and your centerman, who is supposed to distribute the play, who is supposed to also score, and who is the captain of the team and makes 15 million a year or whatever it is, then yes, it's going to be more apparent than it usually would be. However, if you look at other players this season who have scored less, Mikko Rantanen on the same line as Nathan McKinnon, Jack Eichel. Arguably, Jack Eichel doesn't have as good teammates as Nylander does, but he has more time on ice, and he's still playing with Taylor Hall, Claude Giroux, both Kachuk brothers, Mike Hoffman, Brendan Gallagher, Taylor Hall, Bobby Ryan, TJ Oshie, Evgeny Malkin, Teuvo Teravainen, Victor Arvidsson, and the excluded rookies like Tim Stützle, like Alexis Lafreniere, for obvious reasons. But these guys that I've mentioned, Rantanen, Malkin, Oshie, Teravainen, Arvidsson, Hoffman, Hall, Ryan, Eichel, all these guys have less points than William Nylander has. David Pastrnak also has less points, but David Pastrnak has less games, 7 games. So I didn't include him, obviously. But the argument would be, if you're going to trade away Nylander, why not trade away any of those guys? And if you trade away Nylander, who do you get from him for him? Who? That's a legitimate question I'm asking to you guys. Who would you get for William Nylander? I personally have no idea who, but yeah, in defense of William Nylander, he's not the guy that is supposed to get you a point every night, but he's a guy that is supposed to take some workload off of Marner, off of Matthews, off of Tavares, and vice versa. And in my opinion, he does it very well. Yes, he's going to have rough patches, he's going to have dry patches, but that doesn't mean that you have to get on his skates every time that he's a bad game. It's just not a way to get players to perform. It's not. If and yes, I know I've made the argument that Jimmy VC needs to get out of Toronto, that he's not good enough. Different story, different case, different player, different rules. Okay? So, with that being said, if you've enjoyed the video, please consider dropping the video a like and dropping the channel a subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the video, what you thought of the argument of William Nylander. Are you pro William Nylander? Are you William Nylander in like me? Are you Nylander out? If so, let me know your arguments, your side of the story. And I will talk to you very soon.